Hello and welcome to this new Java Lab tutorial. In this video, I will teach you all what you need in order to start programming with Kafka, write codes, write applications, whatever microservices, which can produce and read messages from Kafka. This is the first part. In the next part here, in this part, I will explain the key concept of Kafka and the setup of our projects, and in the next video we will start getting our hand dirty with some code. So what is Kafka? Kafka is a distributed event streaming platform, which as I told in the first video, how to install Kafka on Windows. Kafka provides the ability to store messages either in a durable way, or you can configure how long the message should be stored in Kafka. And using Kafka, you can store messages, you can produce and read messages, and the application which store messages, which produce messages, are called producers. And the application which read messages from Kafka are called consumer. And Kafka producer and consumer, this is the part which we write ourselves using whatever programming language we need. The main concept of Kafka is the term topic. And topic, you can think of topic as a kind of log of events, and it's similar to a folder in a file system. That means everything you write to Kafka will be stored on the file system. And like every log in a programming language like log4j, log4j, which we use in Kafka, every message is will be written to the end of the log. Partition. What is a partition? As I told, a topic is a single log, and this log can be spread over multiple logs. And using that means a partition is a kind of replicated log, which can live in a separate node. That means if you have multiple nodes, you can define this partition, and the partition is defined on topic level. That means while creating your topic, you set up the partition number, and like this you spread the log of the topic on the instances on the Kafka broker or instances which you have, and like this you can scale your application. The producer writes each time to the leader. That means in a Kafka cluster you have followers and leaders. And the producer, the application which you write yourself, writes the messages to the leader, but the consumer can read from the followers as or the leader also. Using the concept of replication, that means replicating this single, replicating the partitions. The replication is done on that, or let's like this. The unit of the partition of the replication is the unit of the replication is the partition. That means you can replicate, you can define which partition is replicated to which instance of server of Kafka instance on your server. And like this, you can guarantee failover. That means if a broker die in your cluster, then Kafka will take care and replicate the messages to the other available followers, and like this, the messages remain available and can be consumed by the consumer. How does it work? There is a single special node in Kafka which is called controller, and this controller is managing the registration of the brokers. That means every broker in your cluster will keep sending a kind of heartbeat messages and or signals, and like this the controller knows if the broker or the followers or the leaders are still alive or not. That means if a broker in your cluster stops sending heartbeat messages to the controller, then the controller notice that the broker is not available anyway, and will elect a new leader from the available followers. Then we have the term of committed messages. A committed message, or a message, is considered to be committed only if all followers applied it to their log. That means if you send a message and all the followers applied this message to their logs, then this message is considered to be committed. Yeah, now let's see the setup for our projects. Our topic name will be JavaLab, and this topic will have 3 partitions: JavaLab 0, 1, and 2. And we will have 3 replicas. That means we will have a leader, in this case this one, and we will have 2 followers. And the followers is also called in Java in-sync replica. That means all the followers which have the same logs, the same partitions as the leader. And as I told, we will define a small microservices which we will call message producer, and which will produce the messages, our JavaLab topic. And we will define also a small Spring Boot consumer, which we'll call message consumer. That means for the setup of our project, we will have a topic which is called JavaLab with 3 partitions, and we will have a cluster of 3 broker, which we will call broker 0, 1, and 2. That means in total we will have 3 partitions in 3 replica, and that means we will have 9 partitions in total. So how we'll do that, since we are on a single node, this is my laptop here. In order to create these 2 brokers, I went to the folder where Kafka is installed. As I showed you before, in the config folder, and I've copied the server property file and create 3 copies of that file. What is the content of this file? Like server property 0, I've changed the port where Kafka, I've changed the ID of the broker. This is my first broker with the ID 0. And I've changed the port where Kafka will keep listening to. That is my first port where the first broker will listen to, 1992. And apart from this, I've defined the folder where the broker 0 will populate the logs. In this case, this is broker 0 logs. And server 1, the same thing. I've defined another port, 1993. This is where the broker with the ID 1 will listen to the messages, and I've defined the folder where the logs should be populated. And for the broker 1, it's broker 1 I have logs. And the same I did here for broker 2. I've defined another port where the broker should listen to, 1994, and the folder where the logs should be populated. With this in place, let's start. And we will have only one Zookeeper instance. And first of all, as I told you in the first video, the first thing we should do is to start Zookeeper. For this, we'll go to the folder where, as I showed in my first video, this is the folder, bin Windows, where all the batch files are located. And from there, we will start our Zookeeper first. And to start Zookeeper, we have to call the batch file and pass the property, the Zookeeper property file. So let's start it. This is the batch file, not twice, only one time. Yeah, we will call the batch file, which is responsible to start Zookeeper, and we will pass the Zookeeper property files. So we have started now our Zookeeper. Our Zookeeper is running. Let's start our broker 0. And for that, we will call the batch file Kafka server start. But I showed you in the previous video how to start Zookeeper and Kafka. Now we will start the first broker with the server 0 property. So our first broker has been started. Let's start the second one, the broker 1. And the broker 2. And each time, as I told, we pass the right server property files. Yeah, now we have our Zookeeper is started. Our brokers are also have been also started. Yeah, let's now see in our next video how to write our message producer and our message consumer and how to create our Java lab topic. And we will create it not using command line as I showed you in the previous video, but this time from Java code. Yeah, let's see you in the next video. Bye.